Hi, and welcome to the Bruce Channel. I'm Bruce. Lots going on, that's often true, but we have to start in Orlando. Sadly, that one word now joins several others with an immediate and an unfortunate connotation, like Columbine and Sandy Hook. So, we'll be horrified, and then we'll hope, most of us, that Congress will take some kind of modest action, but they won't, even though most of us think that some modest steps would be a good thing. In fact, it should be a no-brainer. And even though they finally, after a filibuster, they got together and started talking, and they may pass something really modest, background check for mental illness or membership in a suspected terrorist organization, or a demonstrated ability and understanding the use of the weapon. We have to pass a driver's test. A real estate agent has to pass a test. But we can have no-fly lists, but people on those lists can buy any kind of gun. But here's the thing, even if the Senate passes something, the NRA will huff and puff and then pay off those members in the House who can't do without the NRA's blessing and money, and nothing will get through the House. I've said this before, but we have the best government that money can buy. And we'll call each other names. We'll post crap like this. I saw this on Facebook. Has anyone, anywhere, anytime said that gun laws would make crime go away? And you call me stupid? Learn to read, find quotes that are real. How dare you hold this up as wisdom? Fact, commencing on January 1st, 1968, all cars and trucks had to have seatbelts. No one suggested that would end traffic fatalities. In the mid-'80s, shoulder harnesses were added. Gradually, states made wearing seatbelts mandatory, but no one, nowhere, no time ever suggested that no one would again be killed in a traffic accident. But what did happen? The most ever killed in one year was 1972, over 54,000 killed in traffic accidents. The most deaths per million vehicle miles was in 1966, 5.5 deaths for every 1 million vehicle miles. And our population was just getting over 200 million people. But beginning in 1970, beginning what became a straight downward line, deaths per million vehicle miles fell under 5. In 74, it fell to under 4. It fell further to under 3 in 1982 and under 2 in 1991. Through 2014, the last year for which we have complete statistics, the number of deaths per million vehicle miles is just barely above 1. We may get under 1 by the end of 2015. I suspect it'll probably be one more year after 2016, this year. The actual number who died in 2014 was 32,675, 22,000 fewer than in 1972. And that occurred with a population that's now over 300 million. No, we didn't stop traffic fatalities. But how many tens of thousands, or more likely hundreds of thousands, weren't killed, and consequently hundreds of thousands equals millions of people whose hearts weren't broken, children who didn't lose parents, parents who didn't lose children, sweethearts who lived their full, natural lives. So returning to the analogy, if something modest were done vis-a-vis guns, would crime stop? No. But over the next 10 years, maybe a dozen or 24 or more individuals who shouldn't have guns don't get guns, who, had they had them, would have gone out in the public and sprayed bullets. Some number of mass shootings would be prevented. So if stupid could fly, that statement is spurious, disgustingly spurious. Oh, and just for the record, the Second Amendment doesn't guarantee you can have guns. Now, I understand there's two sides to that argument, and I'm willing to entertain a discussion. But a discussion like that would have to include some facts. Fact one, the Second Amendment begins with these 4 words, a well-regulated militia. Now, if you show me the well-regulated militia you belong to, then it's clear you should have guns. Otherwise, it's not quite so clear-cut. I'm sorry they put it in arcane language, but they did. Fact number 2, no less a conservative than the recently deceased Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia believed the Constitution allowed for some regulation of guns. In fact 3, the Supreme Court, in a 1939 decision, ruled that the National Firearms Act was not a violation of the Second Amendment, even though it did place some restrictions on the type of firearms one could possess. And even Bill O'Reilly and Gretchen Carlson from Fox News think maybe it's time we think about some regulation. A side note about Sunday's shooting, the fast food chain Chick-fil-A is famous for being closed on Sundays, but several of its stores in Orlando opened last Sunday so they could help feed both the first responders and the numbers of people that were waiting in line to donate blood, and I think that's a very good thing. All right, you know, of course, about the other sad news from Orlando. A family of 5 from Nebraska was on vacation, and their youngest, a 2-year-old, suddenly snatched by an alligator. The father tried to pry open the jaws, but ain't no way. Alligators have the 3rd strongest bite of all the world's animals. Like everyone, I was horrified. I'm not even going to mention their name. It's out there, it can be found, but their tragedy doesn't need publicity, but I do really worry for their future. I wonder if the parents' marriage can survive. You know, probably one of them said, so where are we going to go for vacation this year? And suggested Disney World. And I worry that one day the guilt he or she will almost certainly feel will be too great. And the other one may never forgive the suggestion. You know, if you're told that your son was struck and killed by a drunk driver on his way to work, you would feel terrible. But you probably wouldn't feel to blame. And I don't know how these parents can ever get through this. And I can't understand why Disney didn't have signs warning of alligators. They are going to now. But the sign simply said, no swimming. The little boy wasn't swimming. He was at the water's edge, pretty much playing like he would have in a bathtub splashing around. Okay, I spoke last week about the passing of Muhammad Ali, but just after my deadline last week came word that Mr. Hockey died. That, of course, was Gordie Howe. For a while, I was sort of a hockey fan, but watching it reminds me too much of soccer. I'm not a big soccer fan. There's a lot of time spent moving around, but not a lot of scoring. Now, it's true. It may be fun to play hockey. Anyway, that's just me. Even so, I knew of Gordie Howe, Hall of Fame, and remarkably, he played in the major leagues, that is the National Hockey League, in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, and even in the 80s. 5 decades. Amazing. Another passing of note, former Ohio Senator George Voinovich died this week. Before he was senator, he was Ohio's governor. And before he was Ohio's governor, he was Cleveland's mayor. So I got to watch him firsthand. And what I remember most is this. He was the most apolitical politician I've ever known of. When he was the mayor, some of the reporters not like him. They didn't like the fact that he didn't do anything to make news. He didn't go out to ribbon cuttings much, and he didn't make a lot of speeches. He'd just show up at his office at City Hall and go to work. Day after day after day. Boring. And he did what he thought was right. He wasn't a super partisan. As senator in the year 2000, he was the only Republican to vote against a bill that provided tax relief from the so-called marriage penalty. He did what he thought was right. And then in 2004, he set a record. He won 64% of the vote. 64%. That is an enormous landslide. And that year, he did something that had only been done once before, and that was more than 100 years previously. In 2004, Ohio has 88 counties, and he won every single one. You know, actually, I was wrong. He wasn't a politician. He was that much more rare breed. He was a statesman.
Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. For most of my adult life, I weighed a little over 100 pounds. Not much more than in this picture taken when I was about 17 and considering becoming a jockey. But as is often true, once I crossed into my 40s, extra weight came and it stayed. For years I tried to lose, instead gained, and ended up 153 pounds. And I'm embarrassed to show you this video. Then I learned that it isn't about calories and exercise, but instead it's about what you eat. You might say, sure, ice cream makes you fat. But there were surprises, things like orange juice not being such a wise choice if you're trying to lose weight. So I just made some basic changes to what I ate, not how much, and the weight just fell off. Now, nearly 3 years later, it is still off. And don't misunderstand, I'm eating foods I like, not bamboo shoots. Friends ask me how I did it so often, I put it in a book. It's available as an ebook for all platforms, and the print edition is available at barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. Hey, you can shrink too.
Welcome back. Remember, you can write to us at the Bruce Channel at yahoo.com, and you can watch all of our previous shows or episodes, whatever you'd like to call them, at tinyurl.com/Bruce Channel or at our Facebook page. Okay, so back briefly to Orlando. I watched a press conference held jointly by the FBI and the Orlando police. I think it was Wednesday. They're standing outside midday in the sun in Florida. The police officers were wearing black shirts with black ties, long sleeve black shirts. The press conference, when they announced they recovered the 2-year-old boy, the sheriff was standing outside in the sun in Florida in a long sleeve black shirt with a black tie. Whoever chose the uniforms must be a sadist. Has no one ever explained to them the principles of absorption and reflection? All right. So midweek, they found the plane, EgyptAir 804, which went down in the Mediterranean last month. And by week's end, they'd recovered both of the data recorders. So if they're not too badly damaged, by the time you're watching this, we may have learned more about what happened to EgyptAir 804. Although, of course, you may recall Mr. Trump tried to use the event of the plane going down to gain political advantage, saying it was terrorism before anything was known other than it hadn't arrived. No organization has claimed responsibility still, and you know they love to if they can, so his statement represented the worst possible taste. Until Orlando, when he exceeded his own worst possible taste. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, and again, before much was known, this time he used his Twitter account to congratulate himself for being right. He may be rich, but he is pitiful. Compare. A few presidents ago, Bush 41, George Herbert Walker Bush. He was a one-term president. He was defeated by Bill Clinton. You could expect a bit of animus there. So on January 20th, 1992, after the parade, but before the inaugural ball, Bill Clinton goes into the Oval Office for the first time as president. On the desk, he found this handwritten note. Dear Bill, when I walked into this office just now, I felt the same sense of wonder and respect that I felt a few years ago. I know you will feel that too. I wish you great happiness here. I never felt the loneliness some presidents have described. There will be very tough times, made even more difficult by criticism you may not think is fair. I'm not a very good one to give advice, but just don't let the critics discourage you or push you off course. You will be our president when you read this. I wish you well. I wish your family well. Your success now is our country's success. I am rooting hard for you. Good luck, George. That was from a very classy guy. Your success is now our country's success, and the "our" underlined. I am rooting hard for you. So I ask this, when did we lose our civility? When did we decide to become bottom feeders? When did we decide to live in the sewer? Your success is now our country's success. I am rooting hard for you. Compare that to what a self-described patriot, I would describe him as a blowhard, but compare that to what this fellow said when President Obama was originally elected. I hope he fails. All right, I previously said I never watched American Idol because, not that there haven't been good performers, but because they, by design, put performers on who aren't good. That it is a designed humiliation, and I find that offensive. I don't watch America's Got Talent either, but that's for different reasons. I'm not saying I would win it. But when I looked at the rules several years ago, the rules stipulated that were I to go on as a singer, I'd have to cover someone else's songs. Well, okay. But for the sake of argument, let's say I'm an okay singer. But Jim Croce was a singer-songwriter. Adele is a singer-songwriter. Elton John is a singer-songwriter. What if my greater talent isn't singing, but instead my songwriting? I can't showcase that? And what if I wanted to act? So, I'd like to showcase my singing or my songwriting or my acting. What if I wanted to argue, as Atticus Finch did near the end of To Kill a Mockingbird? A court is only as sound as its jury, and a jury is only sound as the men who make it up. I'm confident that you, gentlemen, will review without passion the evidence you have heard, come to a decision, and restore this defendant to his family. In the name of God, do your duty. Well, what if I wanted to do that? I don't want to sound arrogant or boastful, but it just seems the rules are rather confining. All right, so this isn't even about me. What I want to tell you about was Lori Mae Hernandez, and she auditioned for America's Got Talent. She's 13 years old, and she does stand-up.
America's Got Talent! This is amazing! I wouldn't have missed this for the world. I even turned down a really big job to be here. Yeah, have you ever seen Disney Channel? Well, I was gonna babysit 2 little girls that really like Disney Channel.
All right, now I've toured, I've done nightclubs, but I never did stand-up. Stand-up strikes me as terrifying. If the crowd's not into it and I'm singing, I can get lost in the song. But if you tell a joke and there's silence, there's just nowhere to go. So, long time ago, absolutely the most difficult room I have ever worked was a gorgeous, gorgeous club in Waterloo, Iowa. Friday and Saturday nights, packed 400 or 500, maybe 600 people. But Monday through Thursday, 1 or 2 tables. I remember one night there were 2 people. They were minor league baseball umpires. That was a tough gig. And stand-ups can encounter that, and they can't get lost in the song. So, anyway, go to YouTube, or Google YouTube, or Google Lori Mae Hernandez. You'll be amazed. All right, some movie notes. One of the producers of Obamaland just put out word that he believes the trailer will be out soon. I don't know exactly the definition of soon, but who knows, maybe I can show you the trailer in a week or 2. He also announced that he expects the movie itself to be out by summer's end, so coming to a theater near you. I will keep you posted on that. Oh, and the producers of the first film I was ever in, Samka, they finally made it public. To watch it, you can go to Vimeo.com, and at the top do a search for Samka. What will likely come up is you'll see this, and the first one is the trailer. Next to it, that is the film. And you can watch it, you can blow it up to full screen. Okay. A last note about movies. In many, many cities across the country, there is what is known as the 48-hour film project. On Friday evening, the various entrants, the teams get a line they must use, and a prop, and a character. And that's common to all of the teams. But then each team also gets a randomly assigned genre, which might be comedy or a thriller or what have you. So then you take this information, you write a plot, you write a script, you get actors, you film it, you edit it, and you turn it in 48 hours later. It's pretty intense. Well, I am participating next weekend, and that's why if I have to play a scraggly homeless guy, I can't get there immediately, but I could pretty quickly lose all this and assume the look of a banker, just to be flexible. All right, finally, in sports, the NBA Finals, Game 7, Sunday night. Golden State Warriors at home against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm not passionate about hoops, sort of like soccer and hockey, but I am from Cleveland, so go Cavs. Also, in keeping with longtime tradition, the U.S. Open Golf Championship wraps up on Father's Day. Each of golf's 4 major championships have some unique quality that sets it apart from the other 3, and typically, the U.S. Open is known for narrow fairways and, unlike the Masters, incredibly long and rough. It's sometimes been so difficult that the players complain about it. Not always, but some years the winner ends up with a score that is over par. So, I'm recording this well in advance of the tournament's end, but I will be watching, to be sure. I will be watching, and I will be watching with my dad in mind. We lost him a few years ago, but he was the world's greatest fan of golf, both as a spectator and as a player. Yeah, I know. Any number of you might make the same claim about your own dad, and yeah. So let's just establish that some of our dads are big fans and acknowledge their love of the game. One other tradition. My dad loved strawberries more than cherries or peaches or anything. He loved strawberries. So on Father's Day, my mom would serve strawberry shortcake for dessert. Now, I may not do the shortcake, but we should do this more often, Dad. So I'm going to go get some more. Meanwhile, I hope your own Father's Day is terrific, whether with your dad or maybe as one. And I hope, too, that your upcoming week is the best one you've ever had.